Hey folks, welcome back to 3Zan. Now I'm going to take a moment to provide clarity through a playlist I'm going to label context. And in this first video, I'm going to discuss the RSU, the Runway Supervisory Unit. As the playlist develops, I will be addressing other things that you might find in these videos that seem a little bit confusing perhaps. Acronyms, maneuvers, and so forth. So, the Runway Supervisory Unit was in actuality a small tower set out by the approach end of each runway. We used to call it the Little House on the Prairie. But be that as it may, it was manned by 4 individuals: a senior instructor pilot from the squadron, a junior IP, and then 2 students. One was the recorder, and the other one would be the gear checker. These tours typically ran about 4 hours out in the box, as we would call it also. And their jobs pretty well entailed what their position titles were. The controller controlled the traffic. The observer kept an eye primarily on the departure end and cleared for any anomalies. The gear checker sat there with a pair of binoculars and made sure all the gear were down as the aircraft approached the overrun. And the recorder took notes and kept track of takeoff times and landing times. So that's what you had in the box, and it worked real well. When you think about it, we would have on average 100 jets provided to us to fly every day during mid-70s advance, and we flew those jets about 4 times each day, so that was 400 sorties. So the RSU controller had a lot of responsibility on his hands, as did the other members of the crew. I myself just didn't see a lot of fun sitting out in the box for 4 hours controlling traffic. I had served as an observer as I was coming up to be a flight commander, but once I became a flight commander, I kind of dragged my feet upgrading to controller until October 1976, when they nailed me. Okay, fine. Actually, when I got into it, it wasn't that bad, and I kind of enjoyed it. I guess the strange, I'm trying to think of the word I want to use, the fun thing about it, I left the squadron for flight safety in January 1977. So I was only a controller from October 1976 through 31 December 1976. And when you know it, when I got back from safety school during the squadron safety meeting, I was awarded controller of the quarter for that last quarter that in 76. Surprised the heck out of me. But anyway, one of my friends one night was the controller when they had a T-38 gear up landing. It was actually an inadvertent gear up landing. Howard Nicholas was flying with a student, and they'd come in, they touched down on a touch and go, and when they advanced the power, the student felt a bump on the aircraft. About 1,700 feet, we had a small little bump. Most of it, I mean, didn't pay much attention to it, just kind of bump. And but this kid thought he was airborne that night, so he put the gear up. Well, by the time Howard realized what this hockey puck had done, reached up and tried to slam the gear handle, it was too late. The gear was already on its way up. The airplane was settling on the runway. So Jimmy looks out and he sees this airplane sliding down the runway and just a shower of sparks coming out from behind it. So I think more gut reaction than anything else. Jimmy grabs the mic. He's just sparking down the runway, state intentions. Well, unfortunately, Howard didn't have a lot of options open to him. He just kind of slid to a stop. They got out of the airplane and then shut it down, and there it was. But anyway, that's one of the radio calls that I always remember, sparking down the runway, state intentions. So that's what the RSU was, our little house on the prairie.